There you go.
Today, I am super excited to have Lisa Jones on the program. Lisa and I have been trying to get together for quite a while now. So whenever that happens, I know that there's a reason for that. And today is the day. And Lisa just got back from Egypt. So after her first, introductory questions, I can't wait to hear your experiences there. So Lisa is the author of The Art of Living Happily. No, I'm sorry. It's been one of those days. Lisa is the author of The Art of Living Happy After the Loss of a Loved One, inspirational speaker, intuitive guide, and consultant for top level performers in global business, profile celebrities, and individuals alike. Her life changing meditations, podcasts, and stage shows reach and teach the powerful potential of spirit abundance and the key to true inner happiness. What a beautiful bio. Welcome to the program, Lisa.
Thank you, Marla. I'm so thrilled to be here. And like you said, I know there's always a good reason when we keep, missing opportunities to get together because there's more to come. So I think
right, exactly. So let's just begin. I know this was a long time ago, and this is the millionaire medium story is how you really started down this path. You were already on the path, but it's what really caused you to open up to your beautiful, I don't know if I'll call them gifts, I'll just call them the beautiful things that you're doing now. So tell us about your journey and the millionaire medium story.
Okay. Well, it happened in February 22nd, 2004. My first husband had been battling cancer for 7 years. And the night that he actually passed away was an absolutely life-changing day for me, not only in his passing, but that night I accompanied him. It's called a shared death experience, where I left my spirit left my body and went, actually, I was guided with 2 angels that took me into, I'll call it heaven, because that's what I grew up knowing. And from my understanding is that generally we're shown places that make sense to us, that give us comfort, because it wouldn't make sense to take me to a Buddhist temple because I wasn't familiar with that. So they took me to a place that I was familiar with. And to me, it was the most beautiful place I've ever experienced in this lifetime. And it was a giant castle kind of structure. It had giant stones. And in fact, oh my God, I'm having a flashback from Egypt right now, because when I was in Egypt, I walked into one particular place and the Egyptologist pointed up and said, well, this is where the doors swing open and you can see, based on the hole where the timber kept these doors movable. And I had an immediate visceral reaction of remembering that's what it looked like when I was in heaven. And it just blew me. Tears just started coming down my face, because it's Egypt. And again, I know we're going to circle back to Egypt, but I'm telling you that it's so not of this world. It's of another world. And that was confirmation to me that what I saw was so much like the pyramids and like the structures that I saw in this heavenly realm that I was taken to.
But it's interesting that you did see that during your shared death experience, but in 2004, you had not. Did you know not much about Egypt?
I had no knowledge of Egypt. I had no desire to go to Egypt. I never even wanted to go to Egypt until about just 6 weeks ago, when I was offered the opportunity to go. And again, I'll talk a little bit more about it, but basically I was in a guided meditation and the goddess Isis showed up, who I didn't know anything about Isis, but she is the goddess of the heart chakra. And that's what I do. I do love, I'm all about the heart chakra. And so all of a sudden she showed up and said, I am with you. And I'm like, okay. And then 2 days later, I was offered the opportunity to go to Egypt, and it was an immediate yes. And again, I'd never even wanted to go to Egypt before. So it's amazing how things are just continuing to unfold.
Right.
But
Well,
So
so
going,
circling back, yeah, let's
yes,
just talk
circling
about
back.
this briefly and then,
Yeah.
yeah, move
So,
on.
so I was in, this heavenly realm, and I was kind of in a balcony looking down on this area where all of these souls were coming together. And there was an announcement going, the grand Mr. Ian Sharp is about to arrive. And that was my husband's name. And the energy and excitement was so palpable in that space. And the colors were beyond anything. I've got shivers as I'm talking about it right now, because I'm beautiful it was. It was so clean, and the colors were beyond anything that we have here. There were banners, there were angels singing, and all of a sudden this giant door, just like the one I saw in Egypt, started to open, and all the souls turned at the same time, and they said, he's here, he's here. And just as he was walking in, all of a sudden there was a knock on the door. I was actually laying in my daughter's bedroom, and his brother had been sitting with him, and he said, oh my God, Lisa, wake up, wake up. Ian just took his last breath. And at that moment, I didn't actually see Ian walking into heaven. It was like I saw his foot or something stepping through the threshold. And then a trap door opened, and I fell. And I remember falling into my body, my physical body. And I jumped out of bed, and I was elated with joy and love and excitement. And yet my brain was like, no, you can't feel that. What are you talking? Your husband just died. You need to be sad. You need to be. So I was in this complete state of confusion of how I was supposed to be feeling. I ran down to our bedroom, and I saw his body laying there. And I mean, I could tell that it was just a shell, that his spirit was not there. And I just almost had no reaction, because again, my thoughts were in that feeling of seeing where he just was. And I was so excited. And so later that morning, I had to go tell my children they'd spent the night elsewhere that night. And so I was gathering myself, and I was blow drying my hair and thinking, how am I going to say this to them? Because although he had been battling cancer for 7 years, hospice had been there that day before and said, it's going to be 2 weeks to a month before he passes, because he's not looking like, he doesn't have any of the signs or symptoms of going. So I think he chose to go at that moment because the kids were out of the house. His brother was there. It was the first time I wasn't alone with him. And so as I was blow drying my hair, all of a sudden Ian's voice was right at my ear. And he said, oh my God, Lisa, I love you, but it is so awesome here. And I dropped my blow dryer. It was so real and so palpable. And so that's the Millionaire medium. Was the mediumship started at that moment. He started talking to me. It opened a new opportunity for me to be in alignment with that spirit world and start hearing spirit messages. And then the millionaire part, I didn't know. We had gotten him a life insurance policy when he became an executive at General Electric. But General Electric had also taken out a life insurance policy on him, which again, I was unaware of. So I became a millionaire the night that he died as well. And both of those terms, millionaire and medium, were something that I didn't want to deal with. It was overwhelming. I felt not comfortable about either one of them. I was a certified public accountant. I mean, I was very religious. I was very like, what is this? This is crazy. I don't want to tell anybody. And then several years later, my guides came and said, you need to own who you are and step up and own it. So they were like, go get millionairemedium.com and start working from there. And I'm like, oh my God, it was available, but it took me 3 years before I actually got a website up and going. And since then I've stepped back from that term or that, title, only because I'm just doing other things now. But yeah, that's how that got that name.
And I can tell from your story and your voice that so many of the near-death experiences and the shared death experiencers that I interview, they speak of how it's just more real than real. And is that the way it was, since you even ran down and saw him, but you were still feeling these feelings of exhilaration?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's what was so confusing to my brain, is that I'm like, wait, why am I so excited and feel so happy that I saw I couldn't even articulate what I'd seen. I mean, I didn't even say anything to his brother because I was processing.
Oh, how could you?
It was really until I came to Maui, which was in 2017, so that was, many, many years later, 13, 14 years later, where I really started to understand what even happened to me. It's
Had
amazing.
you heard of a near death or shared death experience
No,
before this?
and again, it was years before I even read a book about near-death experiences. And when I read it, I almost fell off the couch because I was like, oh my God, this is what I experienced. This, like, it was just, I just had no idea. I thought it was just something weird that had happened to me. And since then, I had my own podcast for 2.5 years interviewing near-death experiencers and shared death experiencers and just learning about this, because I finally found my tribe of people that I, can relate to and who relate to my story.
Yeah, that's so true. I feel exactly the same way. So certified public accountant, and then this happens to you. So how did it not only change the direction of your life, but also how did would you have to go into like deep meditation, or how did it all begin in terms of opening up more and getting downloads and doing all the beautiful work you're doing today?
Well, it started with, and it was actually before my husband passed, I had been taken for an angel reading in a small little, it's called Touch of Sedona in Ridgefield, Connecticut. And I was like, I don't know about this. I think this is a little strange, but I went in, and the woman just started reading the angels and saying, everything's going to be okay. I can see that you're going through a really difficult time right now. And this is when my husband was sick. And something happened in that reading where I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to understand more about this. So I bought a book called Angels Speak, by Trudy Griswold and Barbara Marks. And I started reading that and really journaling with the angels. And there was a real connection that I had, that they helped me while my husband was dying and sick. And again, I didn't tell anybody about this because I thought it was just a little bizarre. And the other part of it was, so I was really keeping this in a quiet place within myself, even after my husband died. I wasn't talking about what I experienced with anybody, but I went back and started working at a hedge fund, and I was 37 when my husband died. He was 44. And so as I was approaching my 44th birthday, I remembered that a week before my husband died, he said, oh my God, I so regret my career choice of being an attorney. I wished I had helped more people. And that really makes me sad. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm approaching my 44th birthday and I'm working at a hedge fund and I'm not helping more people. And he said, all I was doing, when he was an attorney, he said, all I did was move numbers around on pieces of paper, and that just wasn't helping people. And that's what I was like, oh my gosh, all I'm doing is moving numbers around on pieces of paper. So my guides were saying, you need to quit and start doing your work. And I'm like, so I finally quit the hedge fund. And right after that, I was asked to do, again, all these serendipity kind of things just happened. And
Yes.
I was asked if I wanted to do a stage show at this little theater. And so I said, sure. And 150 people showed up. And
a stage show as a medium for my listeners.
Medium. And I didn't know what I was doing, but I'm like, okay, here we go. And it was incredible. And then the next year, 500 people showed up. And then I was asked to be the Monday morning medium on Star 99.9, which had like over 1 million listeners. That's, the drive time. It's right outside New York City. And then I was asked to do a television show, and I was working on that. And then unfortunately, that was 10 years after my husband died, and my mom suddenly had a stroke and died. And that just brought me to my knees. And that's when I really stepped back from doing this work. So anyway, that was 2014. And then I moved to Hawaii in 2017. And I'm just now starting to feel like, I could start maybe doing some more mediumship work, but I haven't been doing a lot of it recently.
It's interesting, even though we know, I'm not going to say believe, but we know, what we know still, we just, as human beings, you just can't get past the grief no matter
Absolutely.
what.
And that's what was so frustrating to me. Is like, if I'm suffering this much from the loss of my mom, how can I even help other people if I can't kind of help myself? Right. So that's why I chose to, step back and and just
So what is the
see what
answer to that
unfolds.
question now? How can I help other people now that you've you're coming back stronger
Yeah.
and here you are.
Well, I think that's part of it, is just allowing ourselves to take the time to heal and not pressure ourselves to try to do things that don't feel comfortable, because you really need to believe in yourself before you can, help other people. And so I think I've been helping other people in other ways, just not in direct
Yes.
mediumship. And I've become this sacred secret holder. I mean, I have literal strangers just come up to me and start sharing their stories, and I'm just one of those people that hold people's secrets, and people feel comfortable sharing that kind of information. And so I've just been doing my own thing quietly in quiet ways.
Right. I love that, sacred secret holder. That's beautiful. That's probably going to be the title of this this interview.
I love
And
it.
of course, you wrote your book, Art of
Yes.
Living Happy After the Loss of a Loved One. Tell us a little bit how did that happen?
Well, I knew I wanted to write a book about the experience of my husband passing, and I actually started right after. And then I met my second husband, and I was loving life so much that I just was like, I don't want to deal with writing about this. It's so sad. And so I stepped away for 3 or 4 years. And then all of a sudden, I just knew I wanted to finish it. And so in 2012, I got back with my book coach and wrote it. And it's really, and she said, well, you know what? So much has happened since he died in 2004. It's now 2012, and you've had this spiritual awakening, and you've done these stage shows. And, she's like, that's more interesting. Let's talk about that. So I'm like, okay.
Right.
So then it went really fast. I mean, it probably took me 6 or 8 months to write the story, and then I had it edited and published. And it's really my memoir of how I had my awakening. And so I think it's a sweet book. And again, I don't claim to be a writer, but we figured out a way that I could write about different streams in my life. Like I was an actress. So I wrote from the time I was in 4th grade, the first time I did some acting, and up till I was in a movie that went to the Cannes Film Festival, which was super exciting. And so then the editor wove all the stories together, and I thought it turned out
Nice.
great. It's very
Yeah.
professionally done. And
Oh, wonderful. Well, I have not read it, but I definitely will get that. So Lisa, what do you, before we jump into Egypt, what do you do for your self nourishing,
mm, well, I would say,
other than living in Maui, of
yeah,
course?
living in Maui, moving to Maui was definitely one of my dreams that I've had since I came here when I was 14. And I just knew, I said, I don't know who lives here, but I'm going to live here at some point. And so that was always the dream and goal. And when I met my second husband, I was actually in the process of planning to move here with my children. And so he suggested we wait till they graduate high school and move then. Unfortunately, when the time came, he decided he didn't want to move here. And I just said, well, I have to do this for my soul. It's been my soul's calling. Um, so now that I'm here, I mean, really, I have kind of a routine in the morning, of meditation every morning. I do yoga at the beach every morning. I've just recently started walking in the morning, which I'm really enjoying. Since I got home from Egypt, I've been waking up so early that
Right.
I'm just wanting to go and move my body. So walking at sunrise has just been spectacular. That's been a whole new addition, and I'm really enjoying that. And then gratitude. Gratitude, writing in my journal daily, and that seems to be it's just imperative, to
Right.
keep me on that path
That's
of
beautiful.
prosperity and happiness.
Mm. So let's talk about Egypt. Tell us a little bit about, well, you told us why you went and what happened there and how you continually open up, and tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, well, I do believe, as I mentioned, Isis came to me in that guided meditation, and like I said, I didn't really know much about her. I'm still learning about her now. And in fact, just about a week ago, after I got home and I was doing these early morning walks, I was guided to look on my Hay House app and just search for Isis. And there was a book called you are the goddess. And there was a whole chapter on Isis. So I just plugged it into my phone and started walking, listening. And she said, welcome to the Isis temple, which is where I just was in Egypt.
Wow.
And she's like, I am gifting you a golden Ankh, which is this ring that when I was in Egypt, I saw this ring in the jewelry store, and it's a gold Ankh. It's a 18 karat gold Ankh. And I just, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, I must have that. And so she was saying in this audio, I am gifting you this golden Ankh, and it's, to help open the key to your heart. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's still unfolding even after I've gotten home. So I think it's just been so fun, because I'm all about the mystery and opening to these realms. And it's visceral right now. When I was in Egypt, there were 3 different spots where I was just wandering along. And then all of a sudden I just had an overwhelming past life remembrance that just blew me away. I would just all of a sudden was in tears, remembering, for example, King Tut. I was at the museum, and I just walked in front of his golden bust that's there, and I just immediately started crying. And I could remember that he and I were, lovers, and that we had a deep heart connection, and that he had passed away at a very young age at 19. And I was just crushed and sad, and I could just remember the textures, the feelings, the smells. Again, I've got chills as I'm remembering, just thinking about it. And there was another one, we were sailing on the Nile River, and I looked over to kind of a area, and I just remembered myself as a 9-year-old girl running alongside the Nile River and watching all the men on these ships, and wishing I could go with them, but knowing that I was a girl. My dad was a baker. My mother had died when I was born. It just, everything unfolded so viscerally, and so just with such depth and connection. It was amazing. So
do you just kind of stop in your tracks and sit down and meditate, or how does that work?
I just stopped in my tracks and just really closed my eyes, and just, it's almost like it was a movie that just started playing in my mind. And the energy of the feelings and the emotions were so raw and so real that it took my breath away. I just had no idea that was going to happen. And then the third one was, we'd gone to the Great Pyramids, and all of a sudden I walked in and I just started crying. It's like remembering I was a priest in the pyramids, and just, it was coming home, and it just a feeling of being home and being so excited. So yeah.
So in terms of those sorts of things, maybe whether it's signs, synchronicities, little ceremonies, whatever it might be, what would you suggest as a mom for a mom with young children, to help them open up that conversation if a loved one or a beloved pet passed?
Yeah, great question. I would suggest, helping them. A lot of I want to say color therapy, like drawing, and allowing children to express their feelings through art, in whatever that might be, whether it's painting or drawing, or, or recording messages, so that they can express what they're feeling. I did take my children for some counseling after, and that seemed to be a helpful opportunity for them to be able to express their feelings through art. And it is hard. And I think the interesting thing, however, I will say, is that I do think adults have almost less capacity than children do, because children are closer to, their arrival from the other side. And so it's really, they're taking their cues from us.
I really feel that children, instead of the way I was raised, similar to you, but no abuse like that, instead being raised just knowing that life is eternal, and about signs and synchronicities, and that the golden rule. And some say, that's totally different from what we're talking about, but it's not, because as we know from so many near-death experiencers and people like you, that how you treat others and the golden rule is really a thread of the universe. It's not a morality thing. And how do you feel like humanity would change if from the moment a child is born, first of all, we validate and are curious with them because they know more than we do, but to also just live in that world, that the circle of life, the dragonflies, the synchronicities, the kindness, the empathy, that could you just talk about thoughts on that?
Well, I love that because I think that's one of the things that, again, our society has kind of, knocked out of us. Like we're not allowed to, like when children are speaking to an imaginary friend. I mean, who's to say that there's not somebody there? I think there is somebody
Right.
there. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember even as me as a child, I used to see cowboys and Indians outside my window at night because we lived in the mountains of Colorado. And I'm now like, oh my God, that was actually happening. And yet
Right.
I was told that I was being ridiculous and that I was being silly. And, again, it's like beaten out of us, if, metaphorically, if not physically, that, I mean, for us to embrace our children and to have them, like you said, teach us, like they're the wise ones coming in. They're the ones that have a closer connection to have coming through the portal. And I think that's what the so exciting thing of when I saw my husband coming back through the portal back home was how many people, like it's such a celebration when they get to the other side. And here it's kind of dark and scary when a baby comes into the room. It's like a dark hospital room and there's only 2 or 3 people there. And it's kind of like, ooh, whereas like
Right.
it was
Right.
such a celebration, when my husband came back. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I just feel like there's so much hope, and the more that we can have our hearts open and to embrace all that is rather than knowing, like to me, anybody that knows how it is, like I can't, because I don't know. All I know is my own
Right.
experience.
Right.
But I love hearing about people's different experiences and, opening up to new ideas and new ways of supporting each other through love. Because at the end of the day, love is all there is. I mean, that's how I feel, at least.
Yeah. I think we can learn so much from indigenous cultures and shamanism and all that now. And I think that a lot of that's coming back too,
Yes.
So
Yes. Yeah. It's an exciting time. It's all
it
really
is.
coming
It
back.
definitely
It's
is. Yeah.
exciting to be here right now.
Right. Well, Lisa, we need to wrap it up, but is there anything else you'd like to share before we do?
The only thing I guess I'd love to share, I created a little method called the PALS method, PALS, and it's how people can connect with their own, whether it's angels or passed away loved ones. It's my way of, it's how I started with my channeling. So if people are interested, and it's all based on automatic handwriting. So the P stands for prepare. So you need a notebook and a pen and find a quiet place, turn off any electronics. So that's the prepare. The A is ask. So at the top of your paper, you would write, Dear Angel, what would you like me to know? Or Dear Angels, what would you like me to know? Or if, and that's, I kind of recommend talking with angels first. I find they're an vibrationally, they're the easiest connection, once you do that, you can start working on asking your passed away loved ones if they have a message for you. But I think getting a little bit of practice with the angels is a good way to start. So PA, and then L, and this is the hard one, is listen. Because people, it's like discerning, is that a message from my angel or is that my head? And people get caught up in trying to, I think they overthink it, and so to me, when you listen, it's just the first thing that comes. And generally it's so simple. It's like you'll hear the word peace, or you'll hear the word love, or you'll hear just a very simple, beautiful message. And that's how it's an angel, that you're hearing from. If, like my mom, when I taught her to do it, this is before she passed away, and she heard, your cancer is back. I'm like, no, Mom, that's not an angel. That's your brain trying to trick you and make you fearful. So if there's any negative message, any kind of fearful message, anything that makes you scared, because she was afraid, she was scared trying this because she was not sure what she was going to hear. But then after she got over that and tried it again, then she started getting really wonderful messages. But and then over time, like for me, I would start with a word or two, and then I would get kind of 3 or 4 word blocks, and I would write them down, and then you just open again and write it down. And then you start reading and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't even remember writing this information down. And then you get more and more confident in the messages that you're receiving. And then, I would end up writing journalfuls of information from them. And then so PALS, the S is say thank you. Always say thank you to your guides and angels and loved ones that bring you messages. And so that way they'll keep coming back.
Yes, I love that. And I've used that a lot in I want to do more automatic writing, and I've used your pals a lot, and
Oh, good.
it's a great way to just have a little direction,
Yes.
and things absolutely come through. And you're so right. You'll go back and read it later, or it won't even sound like you. It's like
Right.
coming from something, from just speaking in a different manner than you normally would, which
I've got
is,
chills as you're saying that. And that is,
yeah,
thank you for reminding me, because that's what'll happen is words that you don't normally use in your vocabulary come through. And I mean,
right,
sometimes I
right.
have to look up the meanings of words because I'm like, I don't even know what that means. Or it would be kind of not a dialect, but just the terminology would be in a phrase or a turn of a phrase that's just not my normal vernacular, and
Right, right,
then you're like, oh, well, that's not me. That's somebody different,
exactly. And the easier it becomes, the more you do it, because you just open up
Exactly.
more.
Exactly. And then for me, vibrationally, I could start to feel like angels to me, vibrationally, the energy that comes through is different than passed away loved ones. They're more dense, passed away loved ones, the
Right.
higher realms. And then you've got the ascended masters and, so it's so exciting.
On and on.
It goes on and on.
Well, thank you so much. It was great to have you today. And
Yes,
if
Marla,
people
thank
want to
you.
find you, how would they do that?
Well, currently I have a little website up called lovefromlisajones.com.
Mhm.
I have 2 free audio 5-minute little meditations on there with some beautiful original music. And so, yeah, they can go to lovefromlisajones.com, or you can email me, Lisa at lovefromlisajones.com.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad we finally
Yeah,
connected.
me
And
too. This was so
you,
much fun. Thank
you're
you
going to
for
have an ocean Christmas, and I'll have a wintry Christmas.
that's
So
right. That's right.
we'll be sending each other lots of love.
For sure.
Well, have a great evening, and thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Bye bye.